I'm a graduate student in the sustainability program. I earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology in 1997, and I earned a Bachelor's of Science in Wildlife Biology just this year. So we're going to talk about whether psychology can help to inform sustainability and conservation. The sustainability paradigm that's been used for some time is a three-legged pillar in which if you remove one of the pillars, the stool will topple over. So the three pillars are ecological, social, and economic. It's been recognized more recently that this might be weak in regards to the environment. So they've moved to a strong sustainability depiction where it's more nested and interwoven. But if you look at either of them, the individual doesn't appear. And that's concerning to me. So psychology is the field that studies the individual. So how can psychology help to incorporate the individual into paradigms? There are some positive examples throughout the history of psychology. We probably all know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And he didn't write particularly about nature, but he did provide a framework in which it shows how the individual can grow towards self-actualization, which very, very few people throughout human history have ever reached. Carl Jung, despite what many people know about him, did write fairly extensively on nature and its importance to the individual and to society. And Martin Seligman, who developed positive psychology, also wrote about nature and its importance. The problem, so I got my degree in 1997. I don't know, I think that there already was positive psychology movement done, but we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about much beyond the illness of individuals and correcting illness, which I think are both misnomers. So how can we take a step further and introduce the individual into a sustainable framework? Deep ecology is a philosophy that focuses on the human niche. So we tend to think of ourselves as different than squirrels and walruses that have a niche in the environment. But humans also do. And it's a little more complicated because there are political and cultural variables in addition to ecological and biological factors. But we do have a niche. And deep ecology seeks to define that niche. And it sees humans and nature as irreducible. So even if you're homebound and you're living in a high-rise in New York City, you can't get out of your house, there's a need for nature, and there's also the possibility of looking out your window at something beautiful, hopefully. Ecopsychology is an actual therapeutic technique within psychology that's becoming a little bit more popular. I think some of the positive aspects of psychology are becoming more popular, but ecopsychology seeks to integrate people into nature by looking at the gulf that we have by being disconnected because of our social systems and structures from nature. It's super important to realize that both of these have a spiritual basis. So what does that mean? Because spirituality is a word that people use a lot, and yet we don't really define it. So some people are willing to say that spirituality is an actual energy that resides within the human being. Other people might not be comfortable with thinking of it as an energy, but it would define it as an intrinsic aspect of who people are as individuals, and that it helps people to seek meaning and purpose and relationship and connection to self, others, and basically outward towards more global connection, and that includes the environment. So I argue that sustainability will not be successful without inclusion of the individual. And to simply say that the individual is part of society is an empty gesture. Society is created to constrain people, not to help them become more of who they are. So we really need to look at individuals by themselves. And unfortunately, especially environmental conservation has used shaming and fear tactics. So I think probably everybody in this room has received an envelope in the mail that has a picture of a polar bear on it and wants your money. And if you don't give them money, then shame on you, because that polar bear is going to die, and so are all the other polar bears. And so that's a shaming technique. And then fear techniques have been used for decades. So Margaret Mead, a famous anthropologist in the 1970s, had the quote, "Society will die," paraphrasing, "society will die if we let the environment die." Is that true? It might be true, but it's scary. It scares the heck out of me. So I don't think we should be scaring people into doing the right thing, because fear lowers intrinsic motivation. It self-perpetuates. You usually reap what you fear. And those are not the path forward. So I propose that we begin to inspire the individual through self-governance, self-responsibility, self-healing, self-fulfillment. These things can help build spirituality. It can help to invoke spirituality. How do we do this? So sense of place is an important concept where there are values and meanings inherent to any place that people live. And those can be something that you can build your own value system off of and start to develop meaning from. And it's best for parents to do this with their children, but you can start to do it at any point in your lifetime. And so if you look at most indigenous cultures, they took the perspective that they were part of the land or are part of the land. Obviously, there's still a lot of indigenous cultures. So they're part of the land, not owning the land like we tend to do, where we extract and extract and extract. Developing a sense of place can help to understand how you can belong to the land. Today, what we call that is bioregionalism, which is a set of values based off of political and cultural and biological and ecological factors. So getting back to niche again. You can see here in this beautiful picture that this community is living pretty well within their niche as far as I can see. I would love to live here. In this picture, I feel like they're interweaving nature with their culture and probably instilling in themselves a sense of mental well-being, which then transcends into physical and emotional well-being, so holistic well-being. Unfortunately, in the United States, we have some difficulties with this because we value individualism, which is not the same thing as valuing the individual, extremely highly. It's one of our highest values. And what that does, so it creates a paradox, because at the same time that we're valuing individualism, we're saying that it's weak to be self-compassionate, or that it's selfish to think about yourself. And it's not something that society has taught us that for many, many, many centuries, and it's been passed down to us. But it's something we need to overcome. To me, the basis of spirituality is self-compassion. It's really the foundation. And I think that it's impossible to extend compassion to other things until you've built compassion within yourself, and it's not like an all or nothing thing, it's a matter of degree. And some people are like, this is like cliche what you're talking about, I've heard this so many times. But I've been working on self-compassion throughout my life, and it's very, very hard. So it's not an easy thing to do, and I think that some ways towards it are to take childlike innocence and wonder and all about life. Look at the things that are around you. Every once in a while back home, I'm 45 years old, I sometimes see insects I've never seen before in my backyard. It blows me away. But even things that I see, like every day, birds, I just pay attention to them. And I think it's a reciprocal relationship, where the more that you build your connection to nature, the more that it helps you to be self-compassionate, the more you can build your relationship with nature, the more that helps you be self-compassionate. It's very much a feedback cycle. So I don't think we're going to be successful in the sustainability movement until we take stock of the value and worth of individuals in the framework that we're coming from. So this is a lot to throw at you in 10 minutes, and I'm sure I missed some things that I wanted to say. If anybody has any questions, definitely be more than willing.
Any questions? I have a big pond in my backyard, and there were like 6 Canadian geese that landed on it. I'm sorry.
So, okay. So my question is like, what is the opposite of like spirituality? Like some devilish stuff. So there is also including like self-fulfillment. How can you like differentiate those like devilish stuff with like spirituality? what is the main criteria to differentiate between bad and good?
Yeah, so I don't like the word bad and good really a whole lot. Because it has a real judgment basis to it. But I think maybe like healthy versus unhealthy. And I think the way to distinguish is simply compassion. And it's so valuing the worth of yourself as an individual rather than the voice that probably most of us have that are telling us so many things we do are wrong. Questioning that voice, being willing to take stock of it and question whether it's valid and what power it's holding. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question 100%, but I just feel like the basis to everything I'm trying to explore here is the willingness to look inward and question some of the stories we've built up throughout our life and the habits of thought that we have that constrain us and dampen our spiritual ability to act spiritually. So does that answer your question?
I think yeah. It's 95%. 5% then.
You say 90%?
95.
Oh, I'll take that. I need that. Anybody else?
How do you introduce the topic of spirituality into the field of ecology in a way that's scientific and be accepted in the academia?
I have a little bit of difficulty with that because I don't consider myself an academic, even though I do good grades. So I consider myself to be someone who explores things from a very broad set of potential avenues. And so I'm not sure that I've translated it into an academic disciplinary approach at this point.
If I could push it further, how could you, I think part of your premise to develop the fourth pillar, which I think is commendable, is that the broken linkage and connection of our spirituality to the ecology or environment is what resulted in the predicament that we are facing right now in human society. How could you effectively argue for spirituality as an essential component of our ecology?
So I guess it would require some social system measurements. So how are people living bioregionally? To what degree? I don't know how you would quantify that. I'm not going to try to go there. But so going back here, how can we measure the degree of bioregional awareness that's happening here versus somewhere where people don't value that or know about it? And then just do a correlation maybe to the ecosystem health. So the amount of restoration that's required to bring the ecosystem back to whatever is considered healthy by